your ads won't work always. Like in most of the cases, 80% of your ads won't even work, won't even perform. But the 20% of your ads will probably bring your 80% of revenue.
Hey everyone, Silvio Perez here, and welcome to today's episode of Behind the Ads, where we learn how some of the fastest growing companies approach digital advertising. Joining me today is none other than Jan-Birk Becker, Global Head of Paid Acquisition at Cognism. Welcome, Jan-Birk.
Hi, Silvio. Thank you for having me.
Super pumped to get into this conversation today. I'm a huge fan of what you and the team at Cognism have been doing. So just at a very, very high level, what does Cognism do and who do you serve?
In a nutshell, we are a sales intelligence tool and we serve two personas, sales people and marketing people. For sales people, we provide globally compliant contact and campaign data. And for marketing people, we provide quality data, prospect list, and target audience calculation.
So I live in your world of data. And so one of the things that I do is I explore partnerships. So everything you're saying, I totally understand. Providing contact data, et cetera, firmographic data, different data sets. So essentially allowing salespeople, marketers to be able to get in front of the folks that they need to.
Yeah, definitely. And you know that especially if you are using multiple channels, finding your target market is really hard. And you cannot actually use that, find that data to be able to target your target.
So would you say you have multiple personas?
Yes, we have actually almost 5 main personas.
Wow. Okay, that's incredible. Let's dive into it a little bit. What does your paid strategy look like at a high level?
Actually, demand generation is the name of the game. And we split the demand generation into two parts, demand creation and demand capture. Demand creation is happening on paid social channels, and demand capture is happening on Google. And at the end of the day, we have only one target, and that is to create as much pipeline as possible.
Got it. When you say social channels, what do you mean specifically?
Currently, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn are the most profitable channels for us. We are actually, for the last couple of months, seeing people coming from Reddit, people coming from Quora, and we can see that in the self-attribution forms. And I can see that there's a huge potential, especially on Reddit. However, For me, I feel like first we need to make sure that we are using our budget in the most effective way in the first 3 channels. And that's why I'm trying to postpone our Reddit launch for a bit, but we will start doing Reddit ads probably in a month or 2.
That's amazing. That's awesome. So YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn are the big 3 right now.
Yep, I would say LinkedIn obviously is the most important ones, followed by Facebook and YouTube.
Got it. That makes total sense. So demand creation through social, capturing through search. I am very curious when it comes to building audiences. Each one of those channels are very unique. How are you guys approaching getting in front of your ICP, especially when you have 5 different personas?
In order to do that, actually, I think we need to take a step back because our strategy is mostly relying on penetrating the market as much as possible. So we are trying to not hyper segment our audience. We are trying to not create very small, very niche audiences. On the contrary, we are trying to have big audiences and penetrate everyone with the reach objective. And obviously, we are using our own tool, Cognism, to generate the audience, to create the audience. And to be fair, on the LinkedIn side, it is easy because you can basically upload the audience and LinkedIn does the trick. But for Facebook and for YouTube, it is kind of tricky. For Facebook, we are obviously using metadata and we duplicate the audience there and try to target the same with metadata audiences. On YouTube, this is something that we are trying to solve. We've been using actually broad match and with our Google Analytics audience. Actually, I saw it like in your LinkedIn post.
The in-market and affinity audiences?
Yeah, we have this Google Analytics audience and we merge it with Broadmatch. So we are trying to use that audience and also we target some specific channels that we know will be.
Got it. And for everybody listening that's not familiar, Google has just some standalone audiences that they provide out of the box. In-market, people who are actively reaching certain things, and then affinity, people who are interested in like certain topics and things like that. So you can combine in-market and affinity audiences on top of a search campaign to be able to layer it a little bit further, because that's one of the biggest challenges with search is two people can go to Google and search the same exact thing, and you're going to still pay the same cost per click price for it. Right on.
Yeah.
I have so many questions, but I'll try to control myself as far as all that. So one thing that definitely stands out to me is across all those channels, there is a lot of creative demands, especially for YouTube and video creative. What is your process for like brainstorming creative and copy for these different channels?
Cognism is the only company that I work for and I say, okay, stop creating more creatives. The team is amazing. Now there's 40 people in the marketing team. And we have a different team for paid and for demand generation. Demand generation team is mostly working on the paid social stuff, paid social assets. And we split the demand generation team into two main personas: marketing demand generation team, sales demand generation team. And this team, both of these teams are constantly working on understanding which type of content is working, which type of content is resonating, and they are trying to replicate the content for LinkedIn, for Facebook. But it is like a fully functioning engine, and it is not stopping. It is actually working the paid team's life really hard because they are constantly sending new stuff. And I'm like, stop.
Yeah, it's a great problem to have, but there's the old saying, any kinds are an issue. And for this team, so a lot of people are on the opposite side of that. They don't have any creative. It's like a dry desert, and they're just hoping for a drop of water wherever they can find it in terms of producing creative. Just kind of foundational pieces. What had to happen internally to even get that engine created so that you could get to the point where you are now?
I think the biggest reason is our CMO, Alice. She's a big fan of demand generation, and she knows that we cannot be generating new business with ebooks. We cannot be generating new business with webinars. We need to be different. And to be fair, we are not the only player in the market. We have three very strong competitors. And those three competitors are only doing ebooks. They are only doing e-blast, the webinars. In order for us to stand alone, in order for us to establish our brand presence, we needed to be different. We needed to show something that could be unique. And that's how we got the buy-in.
Got it. So would you say if you don't have that top-down buy-in, it's going to be a challenge? I don't want to say impossible, but it would be a huge challenge.
Definitely. Like in my previous company, we were doing lead gen. And when I was trying to get the demand gen buy-in, I was being asked the same question. But the salespeople need to see more MQLs. Therefore, we need to be concentrating on creating ebook banners, creating webinar banners. And it was a hard gate because I needed to provide the value. However, I did, but I did by secretly. I ran ungated content without speaking with my CMO, without speaking with anyone. And after a couple of months, actually, we have seen the spike. And people were like, oh my God, we are getting good form submissions and the conversion rate increased. Why? And I was like, okay, it increased because of this. And then I got the buy-in. But still, that buy-in was not the perfect buy-in. That it was like, okay, you can use 20% of your budget for brand awareness.
That reminds me of an experience that I had with YouTube ads. So a lot of clients that I worked with in the past with YouTube ads. YouTube is really great at driving direct response, but a good click-through rate on a YouTube ad is like 2%. So that means 98% of the people are never going to click through. And a lot of the clients that I work with in the past, they'll be like, oh, YouTube is not really working. Turn it off. You have to give it some time. And I'll be like, sure, turn it off. And then literally within 14 days, turn it back on. Sales conversions are dropping, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, so absolutely. And that actually leads me to my next point, which is when it comes to all of your initiatives, right? You have a whole full funnel approach. You're doing the demand gen playbook where you're creating demand through social channels, you're capturing demand. What does your reporting and measurement process look like?
That is actually the tricky side. It is easier on the demand capture side, on the search side, because we basically use last touch. We know what each keyword is bringing. We know the exact ACV that can come from a specific keyword. So it is much easier on search. But on the demand generation side, we know that it will never be accurate. So we know this and we embrace this. We are using multiple touch attributions. We use for some campaigns on the first touch, for some campaigns on the last touch. Again, we know that it won't be accurate. Since we are only relying on form submissions through our website, we also have a self-attribution form after the form submission. We are getting some data from there. We are trying to use that data every month, analyze the first UTMs from the content campaigns, from the leadership campaigns to understand if there's any specific content bringing more revenue. Again, we know that it won't be fully accurate. So we have the Google Data Studio reports, we see the metrics, and okay, if we can see anything on the first UTM, great, let's keep doing. But if we don't see anything, it still doesn't mean that it is not working. Also, on the demand generation side, we report on depending on the objective of the campaign. So we have 5 different buckets on LinkedIn and on Facebook. There's a content bucket, thought leadership, social proof, product, and demo. The content campaigns are only for the awareness stage and they have the traffic objective because the content campaigns do not include the stuff that can be consumed in feed. So for that, we are mostly tracking the traffic, CTR, CPC, session duration. But for the reach campaigns, and those reach campaigns are the product value, social proof, and thought leadership campaigns, we are only after engagement. We are tracking the engagement rate on weekly and monthly basis. Weekly tracking happens on the campaign level and ad level. So if we see something weird going on, we just pause it or see what is going on. But the more big picture view is happening every month, and we compare the data with our previous data. And the thing is that there's no blueprint. So we are trying to create our own benchmarks. We are trying to compete with each other. But it seems like it is going well, so can't complain.
There's so much I want to unpack there, so many nuggets that I hope people got away with. One is what you just ended on, which is you are competing against yourself. You're comparing your baselines and you're trying to optimize against that. That is one thing that is so critical that truly separates, in my experience, the top organizations, the top advertisers from the vast majority, because everyone's so obsessed with benchmarks and other people's stats and whatnot, which is totally fine to get a sense of things, but it's not something that you can die on because there's so much nuance within any business, target market, industry, offer, all these different variables that you don't control. So you're much better off finding out what your baseline is and then optimizing against it.
Yeah, definitely, sir.
Oh, no, absolutely. Go for it.
Now we have 3 target markets, EMA, DACH, and USA. And even if we are running the same campaign for the same persona, same bucket, the metrics in DACH, in EMA, and US are completely different. Like it is happening in our account, it is happening with the same content. So if this is happening even in our same content, then there cannot be benchmark. Our only benchmark is the previous month and previous quarters.
That's awesome. And you mentioned that you're reviewing metrics from a performance level on a weekly basis, and you're judging the success of these demand gen campaigns, of the engagement of the content and how it's resonating with your market. I really want to triple click on that because one of the biggest traps that I have seen with companies that try to shift to a demand gen model and they start to focus on creating demand, following this playbook, is they don't put enough attention on understanding if their content is actually being well received. Typically what they do is they'll just take their ebook, they'll ungate it, and then they'll push it. And then they'll push it for 90 days. And then they're like, what's going on? My pipeline isn't increasing. There's no more direct traffic to my site, referrals, etc. Demand gen doesn't work. So I would love to dive a little bit deeper on that and how you guys approach the content side of things to really fuel this engine.
For the content, the metrics we are following is the click-through rate and clicks to the landing page. We are getting this data on LinkedIn, and from Google Analytics, we are getting every session duration, what these people are doing on the website, what is the bounce rate. And we try to look at this on the weekly view because in most of the cases, we update the ads on weekly, like maybe not the complete ad, but maybe the content of that, maybe some of the CTAs. So in order to understand it, I think the weekly approach is very crucial because in most of the cases, that if the click-through rate dropped, if there's something weird on the ad level, and you can then basically go to your team and say, look, this is decreasing. Let's monitor this for the next couple of days. And if we see that this will be like this, let's change it. And our approach actually relies on a 2-week sprint. The first week is about understanding which campaigns, which ads are working. And we do that with even rotation on LinkedIn. Then after first week, if we see some clear winners, then we pass some of the ads and then turn on the auto rotation to see if it is actually. And with this approach now, we actually still have some campaigns running from July, from August, but also in the same bucket, we have campaigns that are running for only for a week, for 2 weeks.
I see. And are you concerned when you're going through that sprint, are you concerned with frequency? And ultimately what you're looking for, right, is fatigue. But I'm curious, when you're looking at, you have that one ad that's been running for a while, since June. Well, how do you make your decision on, okay, we're going to pause this or we're going to let it keep running?
For frequency, by checking the metrics week on week is really important. And I will actually mention 2 things here. The first thing, when I joined Cognism, I ran a comprehensive audit on all of the LinkedIn campaigns on S. And we have 1,000 S that are currently live. So it is really hard to understand what is working and what was not working. And after that audit, I actually was able to find out some patterns. For instance, in our product value bucket, the ideal number of S be there was 7. And if that number was more than 7, then the engagement rate was dropping. The frequency should not have exceeded 3. But for content, the frequency could have gone up to 5. So now we create those benchmarks. And we know that if frequency will go higher than that benchmark in specific bucket, we might see a drop. But we are also not relying on that data because, again, it is our own data and it can change anytime. There is no thing on that. Therefore, We are tracking these metrics on week basis. And if we see that the rates are dropping constantly in the last 3 weeks, for us, it means that, okay, stop.
Yep. I hope everyone takes away the need to monitor your campaigns and to have some sort of approach that you follow. Everything Jan-Berg is saying is specific to Cognism. His determination of frequency, his determination of length of flight for the campaigns, their whole approach is unique to their company. Doesn't make it right or wrong for yours. Everyone's different and you have like individual things that you need to sort out, but you don't just run campaigns blindly and then just hope that you drive pipeline. There has to be this measurement in place to be able to understand how do we make these decisions. And I think that if anybody takes anything away from today's video, that they take that away. On that note, I would really love to dive deeper into what does your tech stack look like for paid media?
As I said, we have metadata for audience building and for automating stuff. I like to emphasize the fact that Salesforce is being used by almost every company, but our operations team is really strong. And actually, this is the first time that I'm using Salesforce at the full capacity. And I didn't know that it was such a powerful tool. Salesforce has become my best friend in Cognism. We have a team of 3 people only working for a marketing team on the Salesforce side. So they are really helping my life to get easier. We are using Mutiny for web personalization, especially on Google. The problem, though, we are also trying not to rely on any web personalization tools that much because it might decrease the landing page quality score on Google, therefore the ad quality score. So we are trying to have still some specific landing pages created for each Google ad. Then we make small changes with website personalization. We use Winter a lot to understand which content resonates with the audience. And sometimes we actually have challenges in the team. Some people defend some of the content, some people defend other content. So we use Winter. We are using Drift for website conversions. Our CMS is HubSpot. Therefore, we can create landing pages in 2 seconds. We are using SpyFu for Google Ads. And there's Funnel.io for the data export from LinkedIn and Facebook to GDS.
Amazing.
And let me see.
If you had to choose 3 tools that it's like life or death, you cannot survive without, what would they be?
Obviously, I'm not even going to say Salesforce. That's given. I would say metadata, respect.
By the way, this is not a plug for metadata. I'm just genuinely curious.
I didn't get paid. This is not sponsored content, but I would say and Winter.
Amazing, yeah. And the reason I doubled down on that is because a lot of times people think that I need this crazy elaborate tech stack in order to get started with paid advertising and performance marketing?
I would say then definitely metadata or any other tool that can help you to use LinkedIn or specific audience on Facebook, because you cannot only rely on LinkedIn. Even though your audience might be on LinkedIn, the cost that you pay on LinkedIn is amazing. Like you pay like $10, $15 for CPC, and you cannot afford to use LinkedIn only. You need to explore different channels, and for that you need to be able to target the same audience on different channels.
Yeah, right on. So I'm curious, Jan-Berk, paid ads like the back of your hand. When you need help, when you're stuck and you're trying to brainstorm ideas, what are like the resources that you lean on that have been super helpful for you that other people could try to do the same?
Definitely not my account managers on any of the paid channels. Definitely not them.
Wait, are you saying the reps are not helpful?
Oh my God. Oh my goodness.
Wait, you don't just do everything Google tells you or Facebook or LinkedIn? Is what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I don't know why, because I apply all of the auto recommendations. I use all the broad mesh and they don't work. I don't know why.
It's a mystery.
But yeah, definitely not my account managers. I would say two places, Reddit and YouTube. And actually, one shout out to you. I learned most of the stuff from your YouTube videos back in the day, like 5 years ago, 4 years ago. But definitely YouTube and Reddit.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's always super helpful because it's hard to find resources for B2B advertising. Figuring out where you can go, I think is super critical.
One thing you mentioned earlier is to keep in mind that all of the things they learn through YouTube or Reddit, like they are not always accurate for your company. You need to take it as a grain of salt and apply for your company. It might not always be accurate for your company. They might not work for your company. So you need to be really conscious about applying this stuff.
Yep, I totally agree. I'm curious, Jan-Berk, what advice would you give someone listening who's starting up a paid media program at their company?
Never start from the bottom. First, start from the top. Like, first understand what is the target of your company. Is it to grow? Is it to get new customers? Is it to increase the revenue by 50%? First, understand what is the main goal for the company. Then work through bottom. Understand what is the conversion rate from opportunity to win rate. What is the MQL to opportunity win rate. Then work through bottom and understand that what is working. Sometimes you need to kill your darlings. Like you might think that some of the ads might be important. You must think that some of the channels might be important, but focus on revenue and focus on what is actually bringing revenue. And one thing I learned much later is that the Pareto principle, like your ads won't work always. Like in most of the cases, 80% of your ads won't even work, won't even perform. But the 20% of your ads will probably bring your 80% of revenue. And you cannot make everything perfect. Just be mindful of what is bringing the revenue and try to make them perfect.
I'm right there with you. And then even then with the 80-20, it's 20% of your campaigns, but then within your campaigns, it's 90-10, 10% of your ads then yield all of your returns. One of the big traps that I see B2B marketers fall into is they try to judge every campaign equally. And I think that's a huge mistake because simple example is if you're trying to drive demos and you have your best campaign drove a cost per demo at this amount, and then you judge every other campaign despite it using different ad types, different objectives to that same average cost, you're not going to be able to really scale because some campaigns are just better at doing certain things versus others, but doesn't mean that the other ones are not worthwhile. And that's where it goes back to understanding your numbers. What is your break-even cost per lead? So that way you can use that as like a sense of truth to really determine how much you're willing to spend on any one given campaign.
Yeah, definitely. And especially on search campaigns, you can go as granular as the keyword level. And you can actually understand what is the ACV of each keyword, what is the CR of each keyword. Then you can go backwards and you can say, okay, this keyword for me can worth up to $5,000. And this keyword can be only for $10 for me. And actually, there's some keywords in our campaigns that I'm really okay to pay $1,000 because I know that they bring the whole revenue. Again, you need to understand your metrics. You need to understand your own numbers in the company.
Yep. Thank you so much, Jan-Berk. If people want to connect with you, where can they find you?
I'm on LinkedIn.
Connect with Jan-Berk. He is a wealth of knowledge on paid media, and definitely check out Cognism as well. They're doing a lot of great stuff on not just advertising, but as a marketing org in general. I think they're definitely a company that you should keep your eye on in terms of drawing inspiration and adding it to your swipe file of best practices that you can lean on.
Thank you, Silvio.
Thank you so much for being here.